As a mangaka at Type Moon. By X Emiya Chapter 21-30. 9 people. Even if they were all a bunch of random individuals like before, dealing with them was extremely difficult. Wanting to face more than 10 people alone, just like in a manga. Even if they were all ordinary people, he might not be able to do it. However, he knew that he couldn't afford to lose his momentum. If he showed fear, it would give them courage and put him in a more disadvantageous position. And now, facing the current situation, the best course of action was to capture the leader. The one who wore a black robe and a mask, looking almost grotesque. Just do it. Kazuya rushed toward him. HMPH, too arrogant. Garfield said, watching Kazuya. Indeed, in general, that's the right choice, but, that's fine, let me show you my magecraft. Magecraft. Kazuya's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? He had encountered Emiya Kiritsugu before. Although it was possible that in this world, he was just an ordinary assassin and not a mage killer, there was another possibility. This world might be covering up his mystery, and that person could be the mage killer Emiya Kiritsugu. And now, this person mentioned magecraft. Yes, if he had said magic, it would have been better. In general, the public's perception of magic could be summed up in a few words: sleight of hand. But in the Type Moon world, it was different. Magus at this time were almost equivalent to magician in other worlds. In this world, magician were entities that had touched the root of the world to some extent. At this moment, he thought about a lot of things. Could it be that this world was really the Type Moon world, and this person in front of him was a magus from the Type Moon world? In that case, his previous visits to Ryugi and Tasaka families were deliberate attempts to conceal the mystery from him. The next moment, the man in the black robe in front of him picked up his staff and aimed it at himself. The people who had been about to rush forward stopped and eagerly watched the miracle that the god's envoy was about to perform. They looked respectful, as if they were waiting for the arrival of a god. Boom! A fierce fire appeared out of nowhere. Is this magecraft? Kazuya's face changed. Oni-chan. So amazing. Truly, God's envoy. Several people nearby cheered. Garfield turned his gaze to Kazuya. Did you dodge it? Impressive skills. Well, I'll give you a chance. Garfield said to Kazuya, I'll give you a chance. Bring back a child under the age of 15 within 2 hours, and I'll spare you and your sister. How about that? Kazuya touched his singed hair and smiled. What if I refuse? ... Then you can die. In the flames of the world's end. World's end? Are you talking about that little flame just now? Kazuya said, then rushed towards Garfield. Kill him. God's envoy. Yes, kill him, kill this disrespectful person to the gods. Brainwashed individuals were shouting, possibly out of trust in the god's envoy, believing that the god's envoy couldn't possibly lose and didn't even think of rushing to help. Under the mask, Garfield's expression was somewhat unpleasant, but he still picked up his staff and conjured a flame. Dodged again. Garfield frowned at Kazuya's actions. Although he hadn't completely dodged this time, he had managed to remove his burning sleeve and even obstructed the spread of the flames to some extent. Seeing Kazuya getting closer, Garfield couldn't help but take a step back. His face beneath the mask alternated between pale and flush, as if he had been insulted. Just a commoner, don't get too arrogant. You're the one being arrogant. Kazuya had already closed in on Garfield. You. Smelling the scent of gasoline in the air, Kazuya furrowed his brow slightly. He had noticed a strange scent when the flames had first appeared, and now it seemed. He had been too suspicious. Was this world really devoid of any mysteries? The person in front of him, as he had claimed, was a magician. Of course, not the kind of magician from the Type Moon universe, but a magician who performed tricks. However, this person had taken the usual tricks magicians used to deceive people and turned them into offensive attacks. By concealing magical equipment beneath his black robe and employing a combination of petroleum and a lighter to create the illusion of magic. This explanation could also account for why Kazuya had encountered only weaklings until now. These people had been easily deceived by this level of magic, which indicated that they didn't possess any remarkable abilities. This guy could only use his low-level magic to deceive these people. Kazuya couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. This was the world he had been longing to explore, but it seemed to lack any true mysteries. The person in front of him, with a mask on his face, was just as he had said, a magician. Not the kind of magician from the Type Moon world, but a magician who performed tricks. He had merely taken the standard magician's tricks used to misdirect people and used them offensively. By concealing magical devices under his black robe and using petroleum and a lighter for his magic. This would also explain why Kazuya had only encountered weaklings until now. These people had been easily deceived by this kind of magic, indicating that they had nothing extraordinary about them. This guy could only use his low-level magic to deceive these people. Probably, this guy had planned to abduct these children, then find a way to use his magic to deceive them and sell them for profit. A low-level human trafficker. Don't underestimate people. At this moment, Garfield saw the expressions on Kazuya's face, as well as the disdainful looks from the other magicians around him. But in the end, this guy wasn't even a magician, and he didn't even qualify to enter this world. How dare he act so recklessly in front of him? Bang! The next moment, Kazuya delivered a heavy punch to Garfield's head. Garfield felt his brain spin, and the item he had intended to retrieve slipped from his grasp and fell to the ground. It was a handgun. A gun. Tisk, that's dangerous. Concealing something like this. But this also confirmed something. There were likely no magicians in this world, and even if there were, they were probably just as deceitful as this bunch, resorting to scare tactics. It seemed that Emiya Kiritsugu was probably just an ordinary assassin. With that in mind, Kazuya felt relieved. However, he wondered why this guy, who clearly had a gun, had resorted to such low-class tactics. Was it to maintain his mage image? Did he want to put on a full show? But Kazuya picked up the handgun, checked the bullets, and then fired a shot into the ceiling. After all, even if this guy had fired earlier, he would have suffered at most a minor injury. But now, looking at the 9 people in front of him, Kazuya smiled as he held the gun. This way, he could truly relax. But for some reason, he still feels something is off. Failure. Garfield watched as Kazuya picked up the handgun. His head was spinning, and then he passed out. Indeed, he should have used the handgun first. Ordinary people couldn't dodge bullets, but it was a matter of his pride as a magus. His magical abilities were lacking, so he thought of using this method to enhance the power of his magecraft. Inside the magical device he had created, there was indeed gasoline, but there was no ignition device. The ignition relied on his magical power. This way, he could use a small amount of magical power each time to unleash powerful magecraft, and the flames contained magecraft power, making it a decent attack for some subpar magus. However, he didn't expect this person to be so agile, despite his large size. He had failed. In the end, he had failed. How embarrassing. After Kazuya picked up the handgun and checked the bullets, he fired a shot at the ceiling. In the room filled with children's cries, he warned those who were staring blankly or seemed bewildered, "Don't make any sudden moves." Before long, the police arrived. The chaos in this place came to an end, and those people never showed any intention of resisting or escaping until the very end. They stood there like fools, which puzzled Kazuya and his sister. Were all criminals like this in the end? Or was it because their faith had disappeared? Maybe this can be depicted in a manga. No, wait, readers probably wouldn't believe that criminals would end up like this, Kazuya contemplated, now that things had calmed down. Oni-chan. How are you, Kazumi? I'm fine. Looking at his sister, Kazuya nodded in satisfaction. She didn't cry or make a scene, that was good. By the way, how did they get inside? Kazuya wondered. It seems like they just opened the door. Maybe they had a key. Well, we should pay attention to that, but for now, this matter has come to a close. Alright, let's go. Our journey has just begun, right? Or are you scared and want to go back? Let's continue. Kazumi replied without hesitation, her eyes even shining with excitement. Haha, as expected, your courage is as great as ever. That person, did he succeed? Emiya Kiritsugu, who was about to leave London to return to Einsborn, smiled slightly as he looked at the newspaper. He hadn't fired a shot back then. There were two reasons. 1, it was a busy area, and 2, it was London. If it had been just a busy area, it wouldn't have been a problem. He could have used magecraft to cover it up. However, it was still London. If he had acted, it might have been discovered that a mage killer had been in London. That would have been detrimental to his information gathering. But, in the future, he probably wouldn't have a chance to meet him again. Emiya Kiritsugu casually put down the newspaper and turned his mind to how to win the Holy Grail War. Suddenly, his gaze landed on a shop nearby. Before going back, let's bring a gift for Ilya. By the way, have you heard that they're changing the protagonist of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure on your side? Takashi Motoki, an editor from another department within JUMP's editorial team, suddenly turned to Yu Iwamoto, who was reviewing manuscripts. Yeah, that's right. After this part ends, they'll be changing the protagonist. Jonathan Joestar will meet his end. Really? Luckily, he hadn't taken a sip of water, or Motoki feared he might have spat it out. Well, yes, Yu Iwamoto replied after thinking for a moment. Since this part is coming to an end, there's no need to keep it a secret anymore. However, it's only within the editorial department. Don't spread the word outside. Sure, I understand. Now, tell me, how does Jonathan die? Motoki quickly asked, as he was a big fan of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Especially recently, with the change in art style and all the action surrounding the villain Dio, as well as the earlier uproar over Zeppeli's death. This middle-aged man, who knew he was going to die but charged forward without hesitation, finally revealed his charm at the very end, entrusting everything to Jojo and dying heroically. In that moment, Motoki felt the difference in this manga, the praise for humanity, and was drawn in as a fan of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Could it be that Dio kills him? Motoki couldn't wait to learn more about the upcoming plot. He greatly envied Yu Iwamoto for being the editor for Kurakawa-sensei. It was all because of this manga that Yu Iwamoto was likely to rise up the ranks, and what's more, he could read the original drafts of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure firsthand. What a wonderful feeling. Why did he choose to become an editor? Wasn't it all because of his love for manga? Well, do you really want to know? Yu Iwamoto sighed. Spoilers, you know, right? You won't hit me later, will you? Haha, impossible. Never mind. Motoki thought for a moment and then said, I'll see for myself later. It wouldn't be right to know everything in advance. Hello, this is the Young Jump editorial department. Huh, Kurakawa-sensei. Ah, so the school's spring break is ending, huh? Yes, I understand. If I have nothing to do tonight, I'll bring it over to you, Neko. Yes, no problem. After all, I'm just an editor who can't help with anything, so this is the least I can do. Yes, I understand. Kurakawa-sensei's call. Motoki asked Yu Iwamoto as he hung up the phone. Yeah, that's right. He went abroad for a trip a while back and left his cat with me to take care of. I'll bring it back to him in a bit. He's incredible. Huh, what do you mean? Even though he's in the middle of serialization, he can still go on a month-long vacation and not miss any updates. That's impressive. Yeah. Yes, Iwamoto chuckled. He couldn't say that he had already drawn several years' worth of material in advance, was slowly preparing for new manga projects, and had even started serializing them in other magazines. Anyway, I'll finish up this manuscript I have here, and then I'll go return the cat. For him, the most important thing now was to handle the matters related to Kurakawa-sensei. It was a ladder that would allow him to keep rising. All right, I've called the editor, so we'll be able to see Kohana tonight. Back home, after making the phone call, Kazuya spoke to his sister. Yeah, that's great. It's been a while since I saw Kohana. Kazumi lay lazily on the bed, looking like she had been tired from this trip. From her perspective, this trip had indeed been quite interesting. They had traveled through several countries and experienced many different things. Although she had been kidnapped in the middle of it, looking back, it was quite an interesting experience. After all, not everyone gets kidnapped like that. Yes. Having Kohana with you should give me some peace of mind. Does she serve any purpose, or do you want me to come along? Kazumi thought for a moment. She knew what her brother was referring to. After this trip, he had bought some small gifts and mentioned that he were going to visit a few acquaintances and deliver them. They were called the Tasaka family and the Ryugi family. Well, I'm pretty tired, so I think I'll pass, Kazumi sighed. All right, then. What about your meals? I can handle my meals by myself, Kazumi smiled. Yeah, I almost forgot. Kazuya paused for a moment. Before he arrived in this world, even during the initial period after his arrival, it wasn't him who cooked, but Kazumi, who prepared their 3 meals a day. However, at that time, he hadn't been in the house for long after confirming this world's existence before he went out to investigate the mysteries. It was only after he came back and adjusted his mindset that he decided to take good care of his sister. But now that he thought about it, he had been quite reckless at that time, disappearing for several days. Kazumi must have been worried. Well, he had been in a state of confusion at the time. So, I'll take a day off tomorrow. The day after that, I might go to the Tasaka family, and I'll probably be back in the evening. You'll have to prepare your own lunch, but breakfast and dinner will be fine. I understand. I'll make my own lunch. That's good. By the way, what would you like for dinner tonight? I'll make something special for you. Really? I want soup. Kazumi immediately sat up, her eyes shining like a kitten's. Well, that can be arranged. Okay. Kazuya chuckled, thinking that he should have plenty of time now. Unless he started a new original manga. Because the system's lottery hadn't started yet, and he probably had to wait until his current manga finished. And right now, he didn't have any good ideas for an original manga. And so, evening came quickly. Outside the door, along with the doorbell, a familiar cat's meow could be heard. Kohana! Kazuya and Kazumi exclaimed in joy. After looking at the person at the door, Kazuya opened it. Iwamoto-san, please come in. No, I won't go in. Iwamoto waved his hand. You just got back from your trip, right? You must be tired. It's better to rest at a time like this. After the door opened, Kohana jumped in from the side, rubbed her paws on the doormat, meowed twice, and ignored Kazuya as she ran toward Kazumi in the back. Well, I do feel a bit exhausted, Kazumi admitted. Haha, in that case, I won't disturb you. Thank you, Iwamoto-san. Ha, no problem. Besides, maybe there aren't many editors as relaxed as me. Iwamoto chuckled and left without staying too long. The next day, Kazuya took a bit of rest, not working on his manga. Instead, he played with Kazumi and Kohana. Then, early on the 3rd day, After preparing breakfast, he left. Well, Kazumi, I'll leave it to you to take care of yourself and Kohana. Meow, meow, I know, just don't come back. Kohana meowed. Of course, Kazuya couldn't understand her, but he simply nodded in satisfaction. He liked low-maintenance cats like Kohana, or else he might have given her away. All right then, take care, Kazumi. Be good. Got it. Young Kazumi nodded without a trace of loneliness, as if she weren't alone at all. And so, Kazuya left the Morio town and headed for a famous city, Fuyuki City. Fuyuki City. I've arrived, the Tasaka residence. Kazuya took a deep breath and said. Well, he had received quite a bit of help when he first came to this area. Now that he had finally gotten back on his feet, it was only natural to return the favor. Moreover, Emiya Kiritsugu, Tasaka Tokiomi, and even the Ryugi family. Was this world really just an ordinary world? Although he had confirmed once again that this world didn't have real magic or magecraft, thanks to the so-called magus he had encountered earlier, he always felt that something was amiss. Especially now, the closer he got to the Tasaka residence, the stronger this feeling became, as if he had forgotten something. Well, I guess I'll find out if I go and take a look, Kazuya thought as he knocked on the door of the Tasaka residence. Kurikawa Kazuya, is it? It seems like a regular visit, said Tasaka Tokiomi, looking at Kazuya at the front door. Aoi, please, bring him in. I understand, Tasaka Tokiomi's wife, Tasaka Aoi, also known as Zenju Aoi, nodded and said, but, dear, are your hands all right? Ah, this. Tasaka Tokiomi looked at the command seals on his hand and said, it's all right. I've applied a hidden magecraft. He won't be able to detect it, or if he can, it would imply some magical aptitude on his part. But, I've already tested him, and he doesn't possess any magical aptitude. Besides, I'm planning a trip to Italy soon, so before that, I should take care of things at home. On the other side, Morio Town. Kazumi, still on vacation, didn't go out to play this time. Instead, she visited her brother's studio. Manga. Is it supposed to be drawn like this? Holding her brother's usual pen, she tried to imitate his style and draw the cover of the manga, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Tankobon, that was on the table. After more than an hour had passed, she looked at her creation and sighed, it's so difficult. It didn't look anything like it, and she felt a bit restless sitting here for an hour straight. Oni-chan's drawings look so simple, though. For a cover like this, her brother could finish it in about 10 minutes, and even with coloring, it wouldn't take more than 20 minutes. Watching him draw manga gave her a very comfortable feeling, a special sense of beauty combined with an interesting story. For a while, she had even thought that all manga artists were like that. She had once aspired to become a handsome manga artist like her brother. But it was so hard. An hour had passed, and there was no progress at all. How was she supposed to do it to be like her brother? Hey, Kohana, do you know? Meow. Oh, right, you couldn't possibly know, huh? What am I even saying? Meow meow meow. What's wrong? Do you want to say something? Meow 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 meow, you fool. You fool. Of course, I know how to do it. Are you hungry? Right, it's almost noon. I'll go make lunch, Kazumi said as she tidied up her workspace to its previous state and then went to prepare the meal. Meow, earthlings are really foolish. Speaking of which, it's been a while, Kurikawa-san, Tasaka Tokiomi said with a smile, looking at the young man in front of him. Yeah, it's been almost 2 years, hasn't it? Time really flies by. In the blink of an eye, 2 years had passed, and time went by so quickly. Thinking like that, Kazuya glanced at Tasaka Tokiomi's hands, but he couldn't see any traces of command seals. There was also no sign of Kirei Kotomine in the room. It seemed that the Holy Grail War didn't exist in this world. He had gained Rohan Kishibe's ability. And, Rohan Kishibe's pursuit of realistic in manga, his curiosity about things, and more were included in that ability. That's why the previous manga, Battle Royale, had such a fanatical pursuit of realistic. Rohan Kishibe was the kind of person who would draw something even when he was about to be killed by his stand. Kazuya had received his influence, but he had already experienced the stand ability before. As the manga, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, drawn by you. I read a part of it a while ago, and it looked interesting. Especially Jonathan Joestar in it. Well, I don't have a son, but I'll try to raise Rin and Sakura to be qualified ladies. Haha. Is that so? Well, that does sound nice, Kazuya said, thinking that Rin as a lady was quite imaginable, but when it came to a lady like Sakura. Well, something felt off. By the way, when I make manga next time, I might include Tasaka-san in it. How about that? It's fine. Tasaka Tokiomi said gracefully, but please, do not tarnish the reputation of the Tasaka family. Of course, I'll show you the finished draft when it's done. That's good. Tasaka Tokiomi nodded. It seemed that this talented young man would have his place in this world in the future. The Holy Grail War was about to begin. Even though he was participating now, he couldn't be sure of his victory. Although, if his persuasion succeeded later, they would have two heroic spirits on their side, and according to Rise Kotomine, there was a high probability that his son, Kirei Kotomine, would agree to it. But the Holy Grail War was not about having more heroic spirits, it didn't guarantee victory. Even if they had 6 heroic spirits on their side, it would only increase the chances of winning, not ensure it. In other words, even he might die in the process. And he had already come to terms with that. And, if he survived and won the Holy Grail War, then undoubtedly, he could fulfill the Tasaka family's long-standing wish, to reach the root. However, someone who reached the root already existed, but the number of those who could actually achieve true magic was pitifully small, only 5. Even he couldn't be sure that he would come back. In other words, even if he won in the end, there was still a possibility of returning or leaving. And if he were defeated in the Holy Grail War, based on the information he had gathered so far, the other masters would definitely not spare his life. Even if he sought refuge in the church, it would be the same. In other words, even though he had made so many preparations, there was still a high probability of his death. And if he died, Rin and Sakura's situation would be dire. Both of their talents were too exceptional, too much, he could barely cover up their abilities when he was alive. But once he died, one of them would inherit his magic circuits, and the other would be subjected to research by the Mages Association under the pretext of sealing designation. This was unacceptable, whether as the head of the Tasaka family or as a father. He had to find a way. And connections were crucial. Although, even if the young man in front of him was exceptional, he could at most gain some fame in the surface world. In the hidden world, among the magus, he would be of no use. But even so, he could provide significant help. By the way, I recently traveled abroad and brought some gifts for you. Oh, is this for Rin and Sakura? Tasaka Tokiomi asked, looking at the box. Yes, it's for them. Both of them are lovely, so I brought something for them. I see. Tasaka Tokiomi nodded and said, Aoi. My dear, what's the matter? Well, you see, Kurakawa-san has brought some gifts for Rin and Sakura. Why don't you bring them here? I understand. Then, please wait a moment. Tasaka Tokiomi, maintaining his elegance, said, for dinner tonight, let's dine here. Rin must have missed you. Kazuya was about to decline when a lively voice chimed in. Gifts, gifts. What kind of gifts? Rin, be more composed, Tasaka Tokiomi said as he watched Rin Tasaka rush in, with Sakura being held in Aoi's arms behind her. Yes, father. I understand. Rin Tasaka nodded and then looked at Kazuya. Oji-san, who is you? Rin. Tasaka Tokiomi had a vein popping on his forehead. Haha, it's all right, after all, she's just a child. Kazuya smiled and approached. He said, my name is Kurakawa Kazuya. We met 2 years ago, and back then, you had just started speaking, right? Oh, yes, I remember now. You're the Kurakawa Oji-san from back then, Rin Tasaka exclaimed as if she had just realized. You always had me call you Oni-chan, even though you're like 20 years older. Oh, you actually remember. This time, Kazuya was surprised. Back then, Rin Tasaka was just over a year old, and the fact that she remembered him was remarkable. Not every child could do that. It seemed that even without coming from a magus family, she was still a prodigy. Of course, Rin Tasaka puffed her chest proudly, with a, aren't I amazing? Look. Rin, mind your manners, Tasaka Tokiomi interjected. Yes, father, I understand. Rin Tasaka paused for a moment, then adjusted her posture. Despite being a little one, she had an aura of a proper young lady. Tasaka-san is quite impressive, Kazuya commented, smiling. Rin may seem lively, or should I say rebellious, but she's well behaved. She's doing okay. After all, Rin is still quite young. Please don't mind her. Rin made a funny face behind Kazuya's back, and no one noticed except for her sister Sakura, who kept an eye on her. Watching Sakura trying to stifle her laughter, Kazuya approached and said, it's been a while, Sakura. But I guess you don't remember me, do you? I'm sorry, I can't remember. Sakura thought hard for a moment, then shook her head in disappointment. Haha, don't worry about it. Back then, you were just a baby who couldn't even speak, Kazuya chuckled. That's right, Sakura was still in diapers at that time. Nei-san. Rin, don't tease your sister, Tasaka always said, patting Sakura's head. I know. After exchanging gifts and chatting for a while, Kazuya politely declined the Tasaka family's invitation to stay the night. After all, he had a younger sister at home, and he couldn't leave her alone for too long. However, despite his intentions, he didn't return until after 9 p.m. Have you had dinner? Kazuya hung up his coat and looked at his sister. I had a little something. How about you, Oni-chan? I haven't eaten yet. I'll prepare dinner in a moment. I'll be going out tomorrow, so why don't you come with me? It would be more reassuring if we stayed there for a couple of days. Ah, do I have to go out again? Kazumi sighed. She really didn't want to move. After being on the road for nearly a month, it was initially exciting, but later on, she felt like her legs were about to give out. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. In that case, what will you do for dinner? Hey, well, I won't go. I'll make dinner for myself, Kazumi thought for a moment. In this way, I can make use of Oni-chan's workbench, hee. Don't regret it, Kazuya said, looking at her. The food you make might not be as delicious as mine. HMPH, wasn't it me who cooked for you before? Relax, just go out and have fun. You don't need to worry about me. If you insist, then forget it, Kazuya shrugged. If you need anything, remember to call me like you did last time. I know, don't worry, just go and enjoy yourself. The Ryugi families. This was a different world from the Fate series, an element of the Type Moon universe, and the setting of another work, Kara no Kyoke, featuring the female protagonist, Shiki Ryugi, and her family, the Ryugi family. They were one of the 4 major families specializing in dealing with supernatural threats in Japan, but in modern times, they shifted towards the Yakuza, Japanese organized crime, world. The 4 major supernatural threat-dealing families were the Ryugi, Asagami, Fujoi, Nanaya families, and others. Among them, the Ryugi family managed to adapt quite well to their new Yakuza identity. Unlike the Tasaka family, which maintained an elegant facade, the Ryugi family was deeply entrenched in the world of Yakuza. Being involved with them was not the safest choice. Kazuya had visited them once before. At that time, he was not thinking very clearly and simply wanted to meet Shiki Ryugi, the female protagonist of the Kara no Kyoke series. She was his favorite anime character, bar none. Fortunately, the outcome was favorable. Based on his conclusions, the Ryugi family's abilities remained potent, not diminished as they were in the anime. However, they had shifted from being a magus family to a traditional martial arts family, and they were also more approachable, at least to those who didn't provoke them. "Hello, Kurokawa-san," Akitaka Suzurigi said to Kazuya. "The head of the family has been waiting for you for some time." "I understand. Thank you." In contrast to the Tasaka family, before coming here, Kazuya had made a phone call to the Ryugi family to explain the situation. It's not that he didn't want to call the Tasaka family, but the Tasaka family didn't even have a phone. Let alone a phone, Kazuya had hardly seen any electronic devices or appliances at the Tasaka residence. In comparison, the Ryugi family was much more modern. This way, Akitaka Suzurigi led the way, and the entire area around here belonged to the Ryugi family. For this ancient family that had existed for hundreds of years, this was just basic infrastructure. "Ryugi-sama, Kurokawa-san has arrived," Akitaka Suzurigi knelt by the door and said. "Ah, I see. Let him in." "Yes." After giving the signal, Akitaka Suzurigi opened the door and said to Kazuya, "Please come in." Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. The head of the Ryugi family, who was in conversation with Kazuya, seemed to sense something and said, "It looks like Shiki is here." Kazuya turned slightly, but the room's door remained motionless. He wondered how the old man had detected someone's arrival. "Don't worry about it," the head of the Ryugi family said, closing his eyes. "Come in, Shiki." Whoosh! As the door opened, a small girl, around 5 or 6 years old, with twin tails appeared at the doorway. Impressive. Kazuya maintained his expressions, but inwardly, he was slightly surprised. In his dreams, Kazuya had encountered various situations where people stealthily approached him. Usually, he could sense their presence. However, this time, he hadn't detected Shiki Ryugi's approach. In reality, this wasn't a big deal. After all, Shiki Ryugi didn't exude any hostility, and her footsteps were light, so there wasn't much to notice. What was truly remarkable was that the head of the Ryugi family had detected her. Indeed, there were people beyond ordinary people. Even without any mystical abilities, these families that had been passed down for centuries had their own unique skills that set them apart. "Father, you're here," the head of the Ryugi family said without much change in expression, glancing at Shiki Ryugi. "Good, I've finished saying what needs to be said." Akitaka. "Yes. I'm tired. Take them downstairs." "I understand." After giving a respectful bow, Akitaka Suzurigi stood up and said to the two, "This way, please." "Thank you." After leaving the presence of the imposing head of the Ryugi family, in the hallway, Kazuya greeted Shiki Ryugi, saying, "Hey, it's been a while, Shiki." Shiki Ryugi glanced at him and then turned her head. "Strange person. Are you talking about me?" "Yes, it's you, a really strange person." Kazuya pretended to think hard. What's so strange about me? I can't figure it out." "Well," Shiki Ryugi sighed. "Enough with the theatrics. You don't need to treat me like a child. I'm not that young anymore." Not that young." Kazuya smiled, comparing her height to his. "Yeah, you're definitely not that young anymore. I mean, seriously, do you find this amusing?" Shiki Ryugi suddenly stopped and said with dissatisfaction. "Are you upset?" Kazuya also came to a halt. "No," she replied, continuing to walk forward, adding, "All right, Akataka, you can go ahead." "I understand, miss." With that, Akataka Suzurigi left. Slowly, there were only the two of them left in the corridor. "Is that so? Are you, Shiki, or Shiki, now?" Kazuya asked, taking out a piece of paper with the characters for Shiki and Shiki written on it. After all, these two words had the same pronunciation in Japanese. Shiki Ryugi, the product of the Ryugi family's masterpiece, had two personalities, the passive, Shiki, and the aggressive, Shiki. Both personalities coexisted in the same body. Haven't you figured it out already? Well, you're Shiki now, right? What about Shiki? She doesn't want to see you right now, so I'm here. Shiki extended her hand. Huh, what? A gift, a gift. You didn't come empty-handed, did you? Oh, no, of course not. I prepared a gift. Kazuya smiled and took out a bracelet from his pocket. Here, it's a gift for you. Ah, just this one thing. Shiki seemed a bit displeased. Although I thought you might prefer something like a dagger, you're still a girl, so I refrained from buying it. So, I didn't get you anything this time. Well, you seem to understand. Shiki smiled and accepted the bracelet. But this isn't for me, is it? What about my gift? Well, you see, I couldn't think of anything unique. Let's talk about it next time, okay? Next time. Next time. Shiki sighed. Is it going to be another year? That's right, a year. Kazuya's previous visit to this place was not 2 years ago but just a year ago. This was already his third visit. Yes, I get it. After a while, when Kazumi starts school and if I have the time, I'll come to visit you. How about that? Sounds good. Shiki stopped and turned to face him. We're here. Come this way. Shiki and Shiki both felt that the Ryugi family wasn't a pleasant place for them. Their father didn't treat them as daughters but as tools to lead the Ryugi family in the future. Their brother disliked them and had even run away from home. Their grandfather, who had taught them many things, had also passed away. The people in the family regarded them with reverence and fear, making them all the more detestable. But this guy was different. This man named Kurakawa Kazuya. The surprised expression he had when he first saw them, as if he had known them for a long time, was strange. Furthermore, he didn't exhibit fear or any feelings of reverence toward them. For Shiki, who had an extremely acute sense of the emotions of those around her, this was almost self-evident. Relying on her intuition, she could clearly determine that this person had no ill intentions. This was why Kurakawa Kazuya received VIP treatment in the Ryugi family. Because he held the friendship of the future head of the Ryugi family. Shiki was well aware of this, although it was somewhat inexplicable, and she didn't understand the feeling exactly. Nevertheless, it made her feel comfortable. Compared to the people in her family, she preferred to be around this person and talk to him. This was true for both Shiki and Shiki. And the reason Shiki had come out initially wasn't because Shiki didn't want to see Kurakawa Kazuya. It was just that, according to the judgment of both Shiki and Shiki, Shiki's more outgoing personality was better suited for the initial meeting. That's all. This is it. The place where you'll be sleeping tonight. Well, I should say, are you planning to stay overnight, or are you in a hurry to leave tonight because you're worried about your little sister? Shiki looked at Kazuya and mentioned how he had left in a hurry last time. Well, this time, I've negotiated a bit, so I should be able to stay until tomorrow night. What about it? Can't bear to see me go early. No, if you want to leave early, that's fine. It'll put my mind at ease. Haha, is that your way of being tsundere? You're quite cute. Cute, Shiki said as she conjured a dagger into her hand. Do you want to die? At some point, The personality of the girl beside him shifted slightly. What about the manga you mentioned? After dinner, Shiki casually said to Kazuya, last time, you said you'd show me the manga you drew yourself, didn't you? Ah, that's right. Kazuya retrieved a stack of books from his backpack. This is it. By the way, do you need me to read it to you? What do you mean? Well, you're still quite young, so have you learned all the characters yet? Snap. Shiki closed the book she had prepared to open and looked at Kazuya. I see, it seems like my feeling was correct. Do you enjoy looking down on people? No, no. Seeing Shiki seemingly annoyed, Kazuya chuckled awkwardly. After all, you're only 5 years old, right? I'm 6. Yes, 6. But, generally speaking, kids your age haven't learned many characters, have they? Kazuya gave an example. I'm different. I learned all the characters by the age of 3. Now, I'm learning foreign languages. Shiki closed her eyes, her expression hidden. Wow, impressive. You learned them all by the age of 3. Truly fitting of Shiki, Kazuya said as he patted her head, but he was quickly pushed away when Shiki opened her eyes and glared at him. So, what language are you learning now? English. Shiki turned her head. I'll probably be finished with them by next year. Truly impressive. Shiki Ryugi was born in 1980, and according to the anniversary calculation, she had just turned 5, and by next year, she would be 6. She was already learning 2 languages at this age. Separated learning. Perhaps noticing Kazuya's amazement, Shiki explained, Shiki and Shiki are learning separately. That's impressive too. After all, even with double the energy, there was still a limit to time. Shiki looked at Kazuya and saw that he seemed to have misunderstood. Without saying anything more, she picked up Jojo's Bizarre Adventure from the side and started flipping through it casually. Indeed, Shiki and Shiki were learning separately. However, one thing was inaccurate. She didn't enjoy combat, so she focused on studying cultural subjects. On the other hand, combat training was undertaken by Shiki. Even though she had just turned 5 recently, she had already started her combat training. To be more precise, she had started her training 2 years ago when Kazuya had first arrived. But her training intensity had been relatively low. The Ryugi family was, after all, a family of demon hunters. Even though they had shifted away from that path now, they still needed to learn these skills to some extent. After all, people like them, who lived in the mystical world, would attract trouble from the supernatural, even if they didn't actively seek it out. Strength was necessary, and life had to continue. Fortunately, they were a family of demon hunters, which gave them a decisive advantage over traditional gangs. Although most of their demon hunting techniques couldn't be used on humans, the remaining portion was more than sufficient. Night fell. Shiki took the manga back, and Kazuya prepared to sleep. It's about time. Checking the time, Shiki set the manga aside and turned off the lights to go to sleep. About 10 minutes later, while lying in bed, Shiki Ryugi opened her eyes again. She looked around the dark room, smiled faintly, and sat up. Slowly, after putting on her clothes, she left her room. Her footsteps made no sound, as if she were a ghost. She came to Kazuya's room and looked at Kazuya sleeping peacefully. The next moment, she saw Kazuya's dream. In his dream, Kazuya was leisurely sitting on an airplane, pondering where it would be best to land and whether he could survive until the end. However, for him, the challenge in this dream had been diminishing. After all, this real-life version of the Battle Royale had no hacks, and other people's strategies rarely changed. Gradually, he had lost interest in the game. Well, if only the actions of others could change a bit, or if we could have a different group of people. Although he said this, everyone on the plane was still the same, all the people he was extremely familiar with. However, in this era, there were few interesting games, and this real-life battle royale was one of the few things that still piqued his interest. Strange people. Shiki Ryugi opened her eyes and came out of Kazuya's dream. Throughout the process, he hadn't sensed anything while about to parachute. I told you not to come anymore, but did it only work for a year? Shiki Ryugi sighed slightly and looked at Kazuya, who was sleeping on the bed. He remained silent. She was Shiki Ryugi. But she was different from the Shiki and Shiki that Kazuya knew. Shiki Ryugi was actually the true owner of this body. In general, in the world before Kazuya, she was called the Void Shiki. Shiki could know what Shiki did, and Shiki could know what Shiki did. However, neither of them knew what the Void Shiki did. Their births were because of the Void Shiki's choice to sleep. The Void Shiki was the starting point for Shiki and Shiki, as well as their endpoint. It was because of her existence that those two could coexist. Not only that, she could be considered the embodiment of the root. The overflow from the root created her. She held considerable power in this type moon world. According to the descriptions in novels that Kazuya had read in his previous life, she might be considered something akin to omnipotent being. Shiki Ryugi was the root, but the root was not Shiki Ryugi. This was Kazuya's understanding. If the Holy Grail sought in the Fate series was to fulfill wishes, then Shiki Ryugi was essentially the Holy Grail herself. As long as it's a human wish, it can be granted. These were her own words. With such great power, she naturally could see the future. And she discovered Kazuya's true nature, his origins, everything about him. However, because of his arrival, the original fate had changed. Worldly destinies didn't matter to her at all. That was Shiki Ryugi's fate, and it had changed. The original fate, which she had thought was pretty good, had been altered, and she didn't know whether this change would be for the better or worse. So, she had left hints for Kazuya to stay away from here as much as possible. But she didn't know why she had left these hints. They weren't complete, leaving behind a defect that could be broken through by someone with a certain degree of psychology. So, a year ago, Kazuya had returned, and now he had come back. This was because of the incomplete suggestion and because of Kazuya and his affection for Shiki Ryugi's character. He always wanted to come and see her. For Void Shiki, everything in the external world was known, boring, and uninteresting. So, she chose to slumber, leaving everything to Shiki and Shiki. Because, even though she was connected to the root, it was as meaningless to her as a dream-like thing for magus. For her, the laws governing the reorganization of microscopic phenomena, or even changing the system tree that originated the planets, were entirely achievable. Indeed, it was something that a being called Goetia had once attempted to do, the incineration of human history by gathering magical energy. All of these things were possible for her. And to some extent, their methods were the same. Not changing the current world but destroying the old world to create a new one. However, all of these were useless and meaningless to her. They only made her feel tired and, to her, were no different from dreaming. So, she didn't look at anything, didn't want to do anything, and didn't dream because she couldn't dream. However, an unknown element had crept into her realm of knowledge. Undoubtedly, it was Kurikawa Kazuya, who was originally in existence from another world. But even so, this was still meaningless to her unless he approached Shiki Ryugi. Yet, inexplicably, this man came closer. Not once or twice, but now it was the third time. This man held a strange affection for Shiki Ryugi, and it was precisely because of this affection that Void Shiki didn't eliminate him. It would be easy to erase the unknown Kurikawa Kazuya and create a known Kurikawa Kazuya. The evidence was that Kurikawa Kazuya had been somewhat confused before coming to the Ryugi family, but after leaving here, he became clear-headed. At that time, Kurakawa Kazuya had just crossed over and felt some indescribable discomfort. It was due to the mismatch between his body and soul and wasn't something that would clear up after some time. Then, Void Shiki killed Kurakawa Kazuya and erased his original body, creating a new body that matched his soul from another world. So, Kurakawa Kazuya died once without anyone knowing, and then he revived once without anyone knowing. In a situation he hadn't noticed, he completed a rebirth. Now, the body controlled by Kurakawa Kazuya's soul was undoubtedly his own body. There were no parents, or rather, if you had to say it, the root might be his parents. However, this body was no different from an ordinary person's, just healthier. Even his magic circuits were almost non-existent. As for the system on Kurakawa Kazuya's body, Void Shiki had long discovered it. It was something haphazardly constructed by someone, mass-produced like an assembly line and distributed across countless worlds. Even now, Kurakawa Kazuya didn't have the qualifications to attract the attention of the system's creator because he was too weak. The first time, Void Shiki gave him a rebirth, perhaps out of curiosity, wanting to see what the unknown was. Then she hinted to him not to come here, because even if Kurakawa Kazuya wasn't by Shiki Ryugi's side, she still knew everything about him. However, the hint failed. The second time, Void Shiki once again gave him a hint. And it failed again. Now, it was the third time. Looking at this familiar person, she let out an almost imperceptible sigh. Forget it. I won't do anything. Originally, I came here to have a chat with you, but after thinking about it, I won't wake you up. Let's wait for another chance. Don't worry, there will be plenty of opportunities. Void Shiki fell silent for a moment, then smiled. No, you'll find your way to me on your own, won't you? She had indeed not seen Kurakawa Kazuya's future. However, she knew the future of everyone else, except for Kurakawa Kazuya. But she knew the personalities of Kurakawa Kazuya. To her, it was like a math problem where she already knew the answers, and suddenly, one number changed. But, the change was just one number, she could figure out the final conclusion with a little calculation. We'll meet again when the time comes. For now, Void Shiki said, placing her small hand on Kurakawa Kazuya's forehead. I'll give you something, otherwise, you'll die. And that's enough for you to survive. After saying that, Void Shiki slowly got up, pushed open the door, and walked out. The next time she came out, would be to reveal the truth of this world to him. Rather than being kept in the dark like he was now, unaware of the reasons for various occurrences. Well, of course, if Shiki accidentally let it slip, it wouldn't matter. To her, it would just be a slight reduction in enjoyment. For her, after all, slumber was the most suitable option. To slumber until this body decayed, not even knowing when it would decay, would be the true ending. The sleeping Kurakawa Kazuya had no idea that his system had lost contact with the system's creator. Moreover, several programs on it had started to upgrade. Void Shiki hadn't done anything superfluous, she had simply severed the connection and unearthed the hidden aspects of the system that were originally on it. If, previously, Kurakawa Kazuya's access to this system was at the user level, he now had administrator-level access. As for creator-level access, well, Void Shiki had already taken that away from the system's creator. And as for that creator, they didn't care, or rather, they probably hadn't even noticed. For that existence, creating and destroying billions of these systems in minutes was a casual task. Being stolen from was nothing new. But, even if stolen, how many systems could be taken from a single world? With that time, the creator could easily make billions more. So, Kurakawa Kazuya, who had never attracted any attention, was completely forgotten. He continued to enjoy playing his real-life game in his dreams. He had no idea what changes had occurred to him. Everything was like a dream. Ah. Kazuya, who had just woken up from his slumber, shook his neck and moved his somewhat stiff body. He didn't know why, but he felt unusually comfortable after this nap. It made both his body and mind feel extremely refreshed. Phew. Anyway, the game is almost over. After standing up and moving around a bit, he opened the window and looked at the bamboo forest outside. Kazuya sighed softly. He had become familiar with everything in his dream. He knew who ran in that direction, where there were guns, medicines, food, everything was crystal clear. The most uncomfortable part was that loop. It always shrank in one direction and never changed. In the end, a dream was just a dream. It had lost its challenge and its value as a game. What was left? Well, perhaps he could use it to practice shooting. Initially, he might have felt uneasy about killing those people, but with each almost unchanged restart, dying and coming back to life, living and then dying again, he no longer felt that way. Although he didn't want to treat those people as NPCs, in reality, he had already lost the thought of considering them normal humans. It happened too many times. After going back, I'll draw a new manga. Kazuya looked into the distance and pondered. He already had a rough outline of the idea. Next, he would use this system to round up the settings for the rest. He planned to draw a manga that combined the three elements of jump, friendship, effort, and victory. He already had a general outline for the content of the manga. The next step was to see if this manga he created could be accepted by the public. After waking up a bit more, he freshened up in the bathroom in the room and then opened the door and walked out. "Ah, hey, how coincidental, Shiki. How did you sleep last night?" Kazuya asked, looking at the girl in the hallway. "I was waiting for you." "Waiting for me? Ah, right, it's time for breakfast, but couldn't Akataka-san just come and call me for this?" "It's not about that." Shiki looked at him and said, "Hey, do you think I'm a monster?" Kazuya was slightly taken aback. "Why would you say that? You mentioned it in that manga, right?" Shiki opened the manga and pointed to a page. "I don't know what fear is, and I don't know what courage is. Am I truly a human like this? Hey, how old are you?" Kazuya twitched his lips. Fear, courage, those emotions arise when facing something stronger and scarier than oneself, right? But, have you encountered something like that? Shiki thought for a moment and shook her head. "Then, that settles it." Kazuya ruffled Shiki's hair playfully. "Don't worry, you're not anyone else, you're just Shiki Ryugi." "That's good enough. Just like this. Is it good enough?" Shiki said softly. "All right, let's go, it's time for breakfast." "Ah, and after breakfast, it's almost time to leave." "So early?" Shiki stopped in her tracks. "Well, maybe, but there's still someone at home. I'm not the only one living there, I can't just leave without a care." "Is that so? Up to you. Alone again. ... Time passed slowly. After returning home, not long after, Kazumi's school also started. And then, not long after that, while Kazuya was contemplating creating a new manga and brainstorming the plot, the first part of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure finally reached its final chapter in Jump. A man named Rito Ishizaki looked at the new Jump he had just bought, feeling a little excited. Among all the manga in Jump, his favorites were Hokuto no Ken and Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. In the previous chapter, the main character of Jojo, Jonathan Joestar, who was already married, faced off against Dio Brando, who was left with just his head. Jonathan was pierced through the throat in their battle, using his last ripple. It looked like he was going to die. This issue of Jump had a color page for Jojo. Behind Jonathan Joestar in the color page, there was a man who looked a bit mischievous. The art style was the same. Is this a new character? Looks like he should be saved, right, Jonathan, he thought, and with a bit of impatience, turned to the Jojo page. In his view, after all, Jonathan was the protagonist of the manga. He couldn't die so easily, right? At a critical moment, someone would surely come to the rescue, and then a new, stronger boss would appear, opening a new chapter, right? In the manga, Jonathan couldn't use Ripple anymore, and he had to protect his wife, Irina. Dio, now reduced to just a head, aimed to take over Jonathan's body. The ship they were on was about to explode as the manga progressed. He anticipated each page, looking forward to the next. He saw the new character on the cover come to save Jonathan, but each page only left him disappointed. And then, at last, he saw Jojo, holding Dio's head, lost his breath and died. Below was written, February 7, 1889. Jonathan Joestar is dead. Is this really, just like this? He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe it at all. Among all the manga he had read, this was the first one where the protagonist died so straightforwardly. Shocked, surprised, unable to comprehend. Could he have been cut in half? Also, the character from the cover didn't appear. Next moment, he saw it, several big words at the bottom of the page, the end of part 1. In other words, there's a part 2. The protagonist changed. Sure enough, he turned a bit further, and indeed, the protagonist had changed, from Jonathan Joestar to his grandson, Joseph Joestar. The story had progressed 49 years. Speedwagon had become an old man. And a new stone mask appeared. The thing that created vampires. There's more. As he kept flipping, he pleasantly discovered that this issue of Jojo actually serialized 3 chapters at once. However, he only felt surprise and nothing else. After all, Kurokawa-sensei had become a well-known tentacle monster among mangaka. Even though he only had one manga, he had never missed an update. Whenever someone else missed an update, Jojo would fill in. He had no idea how many he had drawn by now. He appeared. A stronger boss indeed. The creator of the stone mask. How did they deal with this? Creating a stone mask was already challenging enough. Now, there was an existence that created stone masks. It looked really formidable. However, compared to these, he was more concerned about Jonathan's death and Dio, the natural villain. Did it really end like this? It was a bit regrettable. Meanwhile, on evening, Kazuya entered a new dream. A dream titled, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. Where is this? After closing his eyes and entering sleep, Kazuya opened them again. He found that his surroundings had changed. He was now in 19th century England, in the year 1881. His identity had transformed into that of a British policeman. His name was Jerry Copperdale. What on earth is going on? He shook his head, trying to sort out the memories in his mind. His memories were incomplete, lacking any daily routine for this character. However, he knew his current location, his name, identity, and who the people around him were. 1881. Did I travel again? Or is this a dream? In this era, if it were a dream, it meant he had entered the early stages of the storyline of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1. If it were another travel. No, for now, I should familiarize myself with the current environment. I can figure the rest out later. If there was something different about him now compared to his previous self, it was his English. His Japanglish had transformed into British English. And he was quite proficient in it. Time passed by like that. Just as when he first arrived in the Type Moon world, although it was because of his unclear mind at the time, he acted instinctively to verify the world he was in. Now, in this world, he was doing the same thing but with more planning, discreetly using his identity as a policeman to investigate. And finally, he came to understand. In this world, the Joestar family had 2 children. One was named Jonathan Joestar, and the other was Dio Brando, who was adopted. He could confirm all of this now. Well, what should I do next? Get my hands on the stone mask? No. Vampires are still too fragile. My focus should be on ripple and stand abilities. But I don't know where the stand awakening arrows are or whether I have the potential to wield them. Should I look for them? Search among those ruins, or try to acquire ripple? There was also one question: was this real or a dream? If it was the real world, he needed to be cautious. After all, there was only one life. If it was a dream, he could be more daring. After all, his dream self couldn't die. Even if he did, it would just be waking up. Well, let's consider it real for now. It's better to be cautious. If it's a dream, I should be able to enter again a second time. At that time, I'll think about it. If possible, it would be better if it were a dream. He liked that previous time. If I could wake up now. Wake up. Huh. Looking around at the familiar room, Kazuya sat up. Is this really a dream? Click. Suddenly, he felt a slight movement and two spinning wheels appeared in his mind. One had ACG, anime, comic, and games in the center, and the other had Jojo's Bizarre Adventure written on it. He examined them carefully. In the manga section, there were 10 different manga and game-related items. In the Jojo's Bizarre Adventure section, there were various items like Ripple, Stone Mask, Jojo's Notebook, Pistol, Knife, Life Energy, Red Wine, Oriental Poison, Jojo's Ring, and Dark Knight's Sword. A total of 10 items, just like the ACG section. These are all items from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Part 1. Could it be he could draw items from here and bring them into the real world? What a pleasant surprise. He originally thought that the dreams were completely useless except for gaining knowledge. Yet, they had this effect. But why didn't it happen before? Was it because the previous manga he created didn't exist in the original, while these items did? Or maybe, it was because his manga hadn't finished serialization yet. Of course, the reality was not any of these scenarios. It was simply that, unbeknownst to him, someone had upgraded his system. Instead of directly drawing lots, he sank into the system and looked at the dreams panel in the system. Among them, the Battle Royale dream had been closed, and a new dream, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Phantom Blood, was marked as active. He experimented a bit, opening and closing it, opening and closing it. Just like before, he could control it himself, which relieved him. Then, he once again focused on the spinning wheels. Staring at the two spinning wheels, he directed his gaze towards the ACG section. The best stuff should be saved for later. The lottery that might allow him to surpass human limitations should come last. First, let's draw something less important. The spinning wheels started to rotate with Kazuya's will. Type Moon, Naruto, Devil May Cry, Attack on Titan, Code Geass, Death Note, Hunter x Hunter, Gintama, The Rising of the Shield Hero, Hell Girl, a total of 10 worlds. The spinning wheels continued to rotate, quickly reaching a speed invisible to his eyes. He couldn't see anything clearly, only countless afterimages. Forget it, stop. Click. In an instant, the spinning wheels came to an abrupt halt, just like before. The pointer pointed to one of the 10 boxes, Type Moon. The worst possible option, huh? Probably. The corner of Kazuya's mouth twitched. It wasn't that he had any bias against the Type Moon world, it was just that the world he was in now already seemed quite similar to the Type Moon world. Therefore, he had recorded this world's details as soon as he regained his clarity. He continued to jot down everything about this world for some time, noting whatever came to mind. It might not be very useful, but it did serve a purpose. He could burn all the notes and drafts he had left behind. Just to prevent anyone from discovering them. He had clearer recollections now. Well, at least there was this advantage. He sighed. His hand tapped on extract. The next moment, just like when he extracted Jojo's Bizarre Adventure before, his brain didn't feel any painful swelling. Instead, it was an extremely comfortable feeling, as if his brain had received a soothing massage. Memories he had previously forgotten, like everything that had happened, came back to him clearly. Phew. This way, when I'm preparing to draw Fate Zero, I should be able to extract things from it, just like with Jojo. But I'll have to wait for the serialization to finish. And finally, the thrilling moment has arrived. This moment would change his destiny. As he mentally cheered himself on, Kazuya turned his attention back to the spinning wheels. Staring at the two spinning wheels, he placed his focus on the ACG section. The good items should come later, the lottery that could potentially elevate him beyond human limits should come last. He would start by drawing something less important. The spinning wheels began to rotate again. Stop. Click. Just like before, a sudden and abrupt halt, and the pointer stopped on one of the 10 boxes.